Well, I've been with the Fort Collins Police Department for 22 years, and my specialty the entire time has been working with kids. Started out as a DARE officer, taught DARE for a while, and then moved into the school resource officer position. My passion just became working with kids. I just really enjoyed them. I felt like I was making a difference at some time. In the meantime of having the passion for kids, I also had a kid, so I'm a mother, which also gives you a unique perspective on how life is. So I survived the teenage years, and at times it wasn't easy. You know, I remember first when I was a new officer, and I'd have parents complain about the fact that their kid's out of control or their kid's doing that, and I'm like, well, obviously you're having parenting issues. And then as I had my own child, and I started seeing her do things, it's like, boy, you know what, this is harder than I thought. This isn't as easy as you think it's going to be raising kids. So my daughter now has survived, and she currently is in college. And you know, I look back on those times now with fond memories and some not so fond memories. But she's doing great, and looking forward to being a grandma someday. So that's kind of my story. Grew up in Loveland, and that's pretty much everything about me. I'm going to pass this on to Mr. Stone.
I'm Brad Stone. I'm a social worker and counselor at Blevins Middle School. I started out in construction here in Fort Collins. I moved here to go to vet school. And vet school and I didn't see eye to eye. I didn't really care for the way they treated people. They did a great job with animals, but we had a parting of the ways, and I got into the construction business and helped a guy whose house I was remodeling with his papers, and he was in the graduate school of social work. And one thing led to another, and he offered to pay me to go to school to get a degree in social work. He'd pay for the first class, and I said, what the heck? And I took a class, and it was natural, and sort of turned me on, and it was go from there. Got my undergraduate through CSU and master's through DU. Went into social work after I explored psychology and other mental health fields. I decided to go into school social work. I didn't have a great experience in school. I didn't like school, didn't want to be there, didn't like anybody at school, didn't want another kid to have the same experience I did. So I thought if I can change the world of one child so that they would not dislike school as much as I did, I saw that as a success. That's sort of been my motivation through time, is if I can help one student not feel so badly about themselves and about school, then the world would be a better place. It sounds a little romantic, but that's kind of who I am. I'm crazy, I'm wild, I have a warped sense of humor. What else you want to know about me? I've done lots of things. I've done adoption work, private practice, been on numerous boards in the Fort Collins community, from the Hope Center, now Island Grove, to child advocacy, which works with forensics around child abuse. What else have I done? Just about everything I can think of. Helped the center when I had the opportunity. Raised two crazy kids now. I'm a proud grandfather of a 17-month-old young lady who's a Spitfire. She'll be my challenge, I'm sure of it. But kids are the focus. You know, we want this community to be it's as healthy as the kids in the community are. So, Don, I think with that, you probably heard enough about me as to lead into your next slide and move on with the presentation. And I'm going to hide in the corner here.
Okay, well tonight, obviously we're going to talk about peer pressure and PSD resources, which I just noticed my slide is a little backwards, but that's okay. First, we're going to talk a little bit about peer pressure and whether or not, you know, peer pressure can go both ways. It can be positive and it can be negative. So peer pressure, this is basically the definition of peer pressure, and this is exactly what it says in the dictionary. But what I'll give you for my definition of peer pressure is it's your friends trying to get you to do something you probably shouldn't be doing most of the time, trying to talk you into doing something that you shouldn't be doing. So, and every kid wants to fit in. Every kid wants to be part of a group. And I noticed, especially working with middle school kids, and even going back to my high school days, you can walk into a cafeteria at a school and you can look around and you can see the groups. You can see how they go together. You know, you can see the kids that have like thinking in each different area of the school. And I don't think that's changed from, I graduated in 1981 to today. You still walk into a cafeteria, you can identify kind of the kids and where they fit. And, you know, once you get into your group, your friends really help you decide what you're going to do. And some of them, like I said, are not some of the best choices. And actually, some of them aren't too bad. Like I said, peer pressure can be good. There's some times when kids are pressured to be honest, to tell the truth. And where I come from, that is very, very important, to always be honest. Avoid alcohol, avoid drugs. You know, we have lots of kids who believe that that's not the way that they want to go, that those are things that they want to try, and they actually support each other in those things. Avoid smoking, not smoking, same thing. And then I like the be nice. The be nice. You know, there's always those kids that just are nice kids. And sometimes it seems like those kids attract other kids that just are nice, and they just are able to be nice, and that's that positive peer pressure. And respect for others, same thing. You see a lot of kids, if you have a group of kids, one of them is very respectful, another kid will build on that. And like I've seen kids before that'll come up and say, thanks Officer Johnson for what you do. And I'll be like, God, that's really nice to hear. And then I've got 3 or 4 more kids that come up and do it. So it's kind of that positive interaction with kids. And then hard work, you know, especially when it comes to schoolwork. You have a lot of kids, if their friends are into doing the schoolwork stuff, they get into doing the schoolwork stuff. I'm going to hand this off to Mr. Stone and let him kind of speak to what he feels about on this.
Peer pressure, it's everywhere. It affects everyone. Mrs. Johnson has some great speaking points here. Being honest, I think that speaks to something we try and teach our children, your students, about integrity, telling the truth. All of those things that we want our children to be. Be honest with each other. Be honest to self. That seems to be the hardest one. Be honest in our community is always a tough one. Avoid alcohol. We know that alcohol and drugs lead down a pathway that is not healthy. Not smoking, we know that's the leading cause of lung cancer and death to lung cancer, so we want to go there. Be nice. What a strange thing to say. One of the things I say to kids all the time, smile, it's an instant facelift, try it. It's true. There's a psychologist out of University of Montana, I believe it is, that came up with social norms education. Social norms education is that peer pressure affects what we do and how we behave. But he flipped it all upside down, and thank goodness he did. When we look at statistics, we typically look at what are the worst statistics. Oh, it's death, it's cancer, it's poverty. But he switches that around. At my school, if we look at the amount of grades a student could get, let's say in 1 year with 500 plus kids, 2,500 grades. So you might read in the paper, wow, those like 10% got an F. Well, he would flip that around and say 90% of the students at Blevins got D's or better. That's the same thing, but it has a more positive twist to it. So when we look about being nice, that's a culture that we're developing at school, which is about it's okay to be nice. And some students actually come up and talk to us and say, you know what, that feels really good that other kids are nice to me. At my old school, I had this experience. And we hear that from a lot of new students who are coming into our building. It's okay to be nice. We give them permission and we practice it. You'll see me out at the crosswalk every day being nice and punishing kids by being nice. They're not awake yet. And you know middle schoolers, they all love to get out of bed at 6:30 in the morning to get to school on time. Respecting others, I think that's a piece of our society that we've lost with each other that we're trying to rebuild. You know, we don't respect each other. We just want what we want. And I think we're working towards how can I help you and what can you do to help me? And we're collaborating and we're respecting each other and we're putting boundaries and setting limits, and it's really nice. It's really, kindness and caring is a part of it. And it seems to be evolving at our school, and I'm really hard work. There is no substitute for that. You don't have to be the most brilliant person in the world to be successful, but I believe you do have to be able to work hard. And I think that work ethic is something that we lost a few years ago that I think we need to revisit with our kids and our colleagues is You get paid for a day's work, it's time to do one. Work hard because the payoff comes later. So I think these are all great points, that something to take home and something to immerse into your family with and have discussions with. Don, if you want to go on to the next slide, or
Okay. The one thing that I'd say is sometimes these seem so easy. You know what I mean? These are easy. But you'd be surprised how hard some of these things are to instill in kids, even through a peer pressure. Every day, your children make decisions based on what the kids around them say and do. Sometimes they make good decisions, but sometimes they submit to peer pressure and make bad choices they typically wouldn't do. How can you steer your kids in the right direction? This is hard, because this is every parent does things a little differently. So these are just some suggestions to try. First, some statistics. Adolescent substance abuse reports that 30% of teens are offered drugs in middle school and high school. I remember when I was in high school, like I said, in 81, we had one boy in my junior year of high school that got arrested for selling marijuana. And it was huge. I mean, the kids just went nuts. We couldn't believe it. The senior in high school, he brought marijuana to school. I mean, it's just almost unheard of. And it's gotten down to now, occasionally I'll even get called to an elementary school because some child has brought marijuana to school. So there's a huge change. And the hard part is in some ways there's a huge acceptance of marijuana. Medical marijuana, I'm finding it more and more a problem, because kids will take their parents' marijuana and bring it to school and then want to share it with their friends.
I was going to say, since with all the dispensaries, are you having more issues?
Yes. We're seeing more and more kids but also that their parents are saying it's okay. And that's hard. I mean, it's hard as a parent, because I'm 21 years old and I can have a drink. But am I going to say it's okay for my child who's under 21 years old? No, I'm not. So in some ways, to these kids, it seems like it's a double standard. You can smoke marijuana. You say it's a medicine. Well, I have a hard time sleeping, or I'm a little hyperactive. Shouldn't I be able to have marijuana too? And so for some kids, it's walking that double standard. And I think that's been a real struggle. I don't know, would you agree with that, Mr. Stone?
I would agree to that. And the other thing to remember is that how many 13-year-olds do you know that are capable of making adult decisions? Not very many. When we're 13, of course, we do. We think we can make all the decisions. Truth is, they don't know what they're doing to their body because they live in the moment. They don't think about the harm they're doing to themselves in the future. I am sorry to say that with the medical marijuana emerging more and more in our society, it is posing some problems in the school system with the theft of parents marijuana and selling it to their friends or their candies or whatever it is, soup, brownies, I don't know. I'm not well educated on all that, sorry. But it all interferes with their development. It all interferes with their growth. Like it or not, agree with it or not, it's an interference. So we need to be conscious of that, and we need to set some good boundaries around it.
Very good point, Mr. Stone. The other thing is that 74.3% of high school students have tried alcohol. Another one, the statistic that just blows me away. I'm so surprised how many kids have actually tried it, or have actually gotten drunk before they were even out of high school. So, and that's, some of these things are, you're at a party, your buddy's doing it, you want to be part of it, so you do it. And that's that peer pressure piece that works into some of these statistics. 3.1 million teenagers smoke, which is, wow. I tell a story about my daughter's grandmother, who smoked from the time she was 16 until she was like 24 years old. And then she stopped. When she was 65, she developed emphysema. So some of these kids think that these things that we do as young kids won't affect us as we get older. And she's a perfect example of how her damaging her lungs as a young child came back to haunt her as she was older. So kids feel indestructible, but You know, later in life, you never know how it's going to affect you. Tips for parents. Know your children's friends. This is a hard one because I guess sometimes your children have to share who their friends are. I was very lucky. My poor daughter suffered through 3 years of middle school with me at middle school as the police officer. So I knew who all of her friends were at all point in time. And even through high school, I knew who most of her friends are. But sometimes this is hard to know. Ask why they like them. So, you know, why are you hanging out with Joey? You know, what do you and Joey have in common? And if your child can't tell you, then maybe why are you guys such great friends? I don't get it. If you guys don't have some common beliefs and values and enjoy doing the same thing, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Know what their friends like to do. It's really good to kind of be involved in your child's life, but also kind of go over in the friend's life too. If you find out something that they like to do, maybe take them to do it together sometime. See how they're interacting, see what they're up to. I put know where they live. We have a lot of kids that run away from home when they develop new friends occasionally. So I encourage a lot of parents to know where their children's friends live and go take a look for them before they give the police department a call and see if they can bring them back home again. And meet their parents. You can tell a lot from your child, or from a child, when you meet their parents. And you get to kind of know a little bit more about them.
I want to echo everything that Officer Johnson said, but I want to add to it. I want to keep adding to each one of those. Know your children's friends. If you have the opportunity to drive and they want to go to the mall, you drive them to the mall. You'll hear everything you want to hear. You'll get to know them. You'll get to know where they want to go. Where do you guys want to go after the mall? You drive them. It's great. Where do I drop you off? Have your mom come out, have your dad come out and meet me. Great thing to do. Parents, we don't think about that. Parents are pretty dumb sometimes. We don't do the right things. Know why they like them. What are their commoners and what is it that's making them friends? When my children were little, it was soccer, right? Posse soccer up and down the field. What is it now? It's probably books, I'm sure. They're well read. They're talking about literature or art. It's most likely what it is. But I would do that. What do they like to do? Here's where I ask you as a personal favor to celebrate your adolescent. Okay? What are their passions? How are their passions today different than they were 5 years ago? Maybe they were into soccer then and now they're into Bruce Springsteen, I don't know, guitar, crazy music, art, clothing. Find out what their passions are. Have a dialogue with them about it. Have them teach you something. That's one of the hardest things for us as adults to comprehend is our children teaching us something. Like they would actually know something is where we come from. What a great treat that is. It gives you something to talk about. Do something with them and let them choose. You know, if they want to go to a concert, say, sure, why don't we go together? Wow, wouldn't that blow you out? That's a great one.
Probably would blow you out whether
Know where their friends live. Yeah, know where their friends live. That's great. You should know almost everything about your kid. And they should be comfortable with that. My son is now 28, and he still calls to let me know where he and his family are going once in a while. I'm like, you're a grown-up. You don't need to do that. And they talk about their friends. My daughter and my son talk about their friends still. And they even came over for Thanksgiving. So that family stuff really is wonderful. But we talk to each other, and it took years and years to develop a dialogue. If nothing else, learn to dialogue with your children. It takes a lot of work. I'm grateful for the Center for doing outreach and doing strengthening families, because I'm sure communication is a huge, huge part of it. If we were all doing it right, we wouldn't be having this conversation. So I think it's important to learn those skills, and I'm still learning them, and I'm getting close to the end of my career, but I'm still learning them. So I encourage you to do all those things we talk about. Catch your kids doing it right and take them and their friends out for a Slurpee. You know, just because you feel like it. You're the boss. That's the other thing you have to learn is you're the parent. You're not the kid, the brother, the sister, the cousin. You're the parent. And you know what? My mom never said it would be easy. That's for sure. She never told me the truth.
I feel like we're leashed together, you know? Here you go, you get this much space and then I'll take it back. Talk about values. Oops, sorry. Talk about values. What's important to you? What's important to your family? What do you deem as family goals or your goals for your kids? I mean, for some kids, it's to go to college. It's to explore whatever they want to be. For other kids, it's to go to trade school. And other family values, you know, kindness, love, compassion, all those things that most families have. You need to talk about those values. Make sure you discuss drugs, tobacco, and alcohol openly. That's hard sometimes. And it's hard when your kid looks you in the face and says, "Did you ever?" But I also think it's important to be honest, because that's a value you're teaching your kids. Be clear about what's right and wrong. Be clear about what you want for your child, what you want for them in the future. These things help kids stand up to peer pressure. These things help kids feel good about themselves and the decisions that they're making.
I would like to add a caveat to that when we talk to our kids about some of these values and some of these drugs and alcohol. As Officer Johnson said, that's really uncomfortable and it's really hard. I would look at you and say, they don't need to know everything you did. What I've found over the years is that's a permission piece sometimes. Well, you did it, so why shouldn't I? And you turned out all right. Wow, do you really want your child to go through all that you may have experienced? I don't think it's a great idea. It's a hard one to say no to, and being honest is part of what Mrs. Johnson just said. But you can say, I did some things I'm not so proud of and I'm not comfortable discussing them. Those are tough words, and that's setting a boundary and setting some limits of, yeah, I did some things I'm not proud of, and maybe someday we'll talk about it, but not today. Drugs, tobacco, alcohol, there's nothing there that seems really into our wellness thing that we're into in society right now. Really not a lot of professional druggies that are still alive. You know, most people who are smoking at 90 are not real healthy. Most alcoholics, or many alcoholics, at least in this country, are in rehab or working on their recovery. If you have the chance and you have access to the internet, there's a website called values.com, and it's put together through the Foundation for a Better Life, and it really addresses values and families with tons and tons of information, and I use that as a resource all the time. Please have these conversations with your children. Along with this is have them start dreaming and telling you, what do you dream about the future? If they can't see the future, where is there to go? What direction is there to go? So as you dialogue with your student, with your child about, what do you want to be when you grow up? How do you get there? What does it mean? What do you see yourself doing? Where? With whom? Those are all questions that if I had a student in my office that I would be inquiring about. What's the future look like? You know, most of them don't tell me, yeah, you know, I'm going to be in the hospital on a respirator because I have lung cancer. I don't hear that. Or, yeah, I'm going to be in rehab for the 3rd time and have the DTs, you know. But I think as we look towards the future, we look towards those dreams and pursuing them, we instill something called hope for the future. Right now, the kids that I work with, that I see, they don't talk too much about the future. I want to go to high school, I want to go to college. What do you want to do? I don't know. So for me, help get them there. Push them there. Lead them there. Hold their hand there. But these are all important stepping stones to that peace, which is what makes us so proud.
I have a quick question.
Go ahead.
Wouldn't that also include as far as like to drugs, to alcohol and tobacco? Wouldn't it also include the sex?
You said the S word. Actually, I was going to say the S word, but I wasn't sure how comfortable my audience would be with the S word. So, yes, it would include that too. And it's nice that you brought that up and you said it and I didn't. So that lady there said the S word. So
Okay, he's going to edit me.
I know he is. Yeah, you know what? Yes, and I don't usually say that, but you hit it on the nose. That's an important thing to be talking about to
Again,
your
that
kids.
has to do with family values.
Family values.
And where you want to do that. And I tend to focus, if I have to have those conversations with families, around the safety issues around it, not around the act of sex, but more around the safety issues.
The S word.
The S word.
I'm sorry, because they brought it up in one of the previous classes, and it's like, you know, you have, anymore, it's a high rate of teen pregnancies, starting younger than, you know, my generation.
Oh, much younger. I mean, the youngest young lady that I had that was pregnant was a 7th grader. So it is starting much younger. And, you know, you look at society and you look kind of what's acceptable to these kids and what they're seeing on TV and what they're seeing on the internet and what they're hearing on music and what people seem to think is okay. I was looking on the internet today and I don't even know what the lady's name is, but probably one of you guys do. The 17-year-old who married the 34-year-old man that's a star. I can't remember what the guy's name is, but she's 17 years old. Mother gave her permission to marry this 35-year-old man, and she looks like she's in her 20s and very inappropriate. And, you know, young girls are looking up to her like she's all that, you know, and it's acceptable. And that's kind of scary. That goes along with the family values. Another way, some more tips, because I can't talk about the S word anymore. Be involved. Attend sporting events and school functions. Check out your students' grades, and we'll talk about how you can do that here in just a second. Spend time with your child, ask questions, and be honest. My daughter gets so angry with me to this day because I constantly ask her questions. And, you know, she's 20, and I probably ought to cut her a break, but it doesn't matter to me. She will always be my child. And I will ask her questions, and I will drive her nuts until the day she dies, or until the day I die. Because I want to know. I want to know what's going on. And I've been lucky that I've instilled the value of being honest, and sometimes some of the things I hear may not make me happy, but I always celebrate the fact that she's honest. And, you know, I believe that she's always been honest with me. I haven't never caught her not being honest, and she's admitted to doing some things that weren't that intelligent, you know, but she's always been honest. And the other thing that goes along with that is just spending time with her. For me personally, and you guys may have a different view because I have a daughter and I know you have sons, but from the age of about, I'd say newborn until she got to be about 11 years old, I loved her and I liked her. I just thought she was all that. She was wonderful. And hopefully she never watches YouTube because this will be terrible for me. From the ages of about 12 until she was 17, I did not like that child. I'm not sure what happened. Her head started spinning around and she started spewing green pea soup for a little while there. And then all of a sudden at 18, I started to like her again. Never stopped loving her, but didn't like her so much for a little while. So it's a challenge, and it was a challenge to still want to spend time with her sometimes. You know, it was a challenge to still ask her the questions. She would occasionally yell at me about something, and I'd be like, you know what, sorry, not going anywhere. Sorry, you're not happy with me currently, but still gonna get it. You know, you're still gonna get the questions, and I'm still gonna hang out with you, and I'm still gonna hug you, and I'm still gonna annoy you. And it was a fight sometimes, but it was a fight worth fighting. So that's the hard part with kids. So I'm gonna say that.
Man, there's just so much to talk about around all these areas. It's amazing. One of the things I would like to leave you with tonight is have faith in your kid. Nobody else does right now. You know, believe in them and let them know that someday they'll turn out to be the person they want to be. And I said it that way because typically growing up it was the way our parents wanted us to be. But that's not the truth of the matter. The truth is they want to be the person they want to be, and it's okay as long as it doesn't do any harm. You know? If you're involved in their life, whether they like it or not, they'll do fine. But to be an absent parent and to, when things get tough, you bail, it's not going to work for them. It's not going to work. So, you know, I suppose for years I said, gee, I got to live long enough to be a problem for my kids, you know. I think the more involved you are, they may not like it. I hated my parents involved. My parents were president of the PTO. You know, they were in my face everywhere I went. I couldn't get rid of them. I look back on it today and say, I'm sure glad they were there. I hated it at the time when I knew everything at 13 again. But they were there. They were at all of my sporting events. It's one of the reasons I quit sports, because they were there. But you know what? When they weren't looking, I went back. When I needed help, they were still there, even though I didn't deserve the help with school. They were still there. They didn't leave. They were involved in everything. My mom drove to the mall. They took us to the beach. We went on camping trips with my friends. And I kept saying, well, why is it always you guys that have to go? Well, their parents didn't want to go and felt like it was a vacation. But for my parents, they said, well, we like your friends and we want all of us to have a good time. With the studies, that was always a tug of war. But they were there to help. My parents were there. And they were perfect, and there was no way they were perfect. They were involved in things, and that's what I encourage you to do. If your son or daughter are in athletics, attend them. They may lose. They may be terrible at it. They're there. Think of the other places they could be that are not so constructive. Whether it's an art group at school or book group. Your kid involved in something, and you're going to parent-teacher conferences. Huge. You may have an A student. You know what? You going to those conferences, even though the teacher may say, oh, you don't need to be here. Your kid's doing great. You're demonstrating to your child, you're worthwhile, I love you, I care about you, and I will find out how good you're doing. And I'm proud of you. That's huge. I hear that from parents, from teachers, from kids. I can't believe my mom came to conferences. That's the first time. Well, to me, that's a clear message that says, wow, you need to be there. Open houses at schools, classes if you can attend them. What other functions do we have going on? Carnivals, chili suppers, dances, chaperone a dance. It drives them nuts. It's great. The only rule when my kids were at the same school I was I wasn't allowed on the dance floor. And you know what? It worked fine. They didn't want me to be there, but they knew I had to, so that was kind of their thing. But you know what? You get to watch your kids interact in their environment, not yours, theirs. It's a wonderful learning experience. Check your students' grades. Boy, that's never a problem, isn't it? The school district has facilitated on their website something called Pinnacle Grade Viewer.
You're getting ahead of yourself.
Where did I mess up?
It's coming up next. It's one
Okay,
of your
we'll
other
get it. It says
slides.
check your students' grades. See how that goes?
He's
He's
getting
the
out of my
boss.
slides out of.
All right, I'll back up. Spending quality
There you
time
go.
with your kids, all right? We'll go on to that one. What does that look like? You know what? Special time where you go out to dinner for me, my daughter and I. We have a restaurant we've gone to for years, and just she and I go to. And one time somebody was so enamored with us just hanging out that they bought our dinner. That we were just laughing and having a good time and eating dinner and sharing a meal. They bought our dinner for us. You know, it's like, why would you do something like that? But they were just like, that's just so cool that a parent and their kid would just hang. They just hang out together. I've taken her window shopping, you know, and not bought anything, which my wife just doesn't understand. It's okay. Practicing if you're into the athletic stuff with them. Skiing, if you can afford it. Going to the movies. My kids and I, every once in a while, we just go to the movies. One of my fond memories for both my kids is Friday night when they were in elementary school was pizza video night. They rented a video, I paid for it. We ordered a pizza, we got the blanket, and we sat in front of the TV and watched the video together and ate pizza. I thought that was disgusting. What a great thing. The kids still talk about how cool that was and that they would never do it again. But it was quality time together, and that's the point I'm trying to make. You know what? Maybe it's going on a hike. Maybe it's watching a movie that they like that you might not, but you'll grin and bear it, or you'll treat to the movies, and it's just great time. Art projects, quilting, You know, I think my daughter got into the craft thing. My son just didn't want anything to do that with my wife. Asking questions. Open-ended questions. I want to preface that with open-ended questions. Not how was school, but what was the best thing about your day? What was the best thing about school today? You can't get out of that one. Nothing. Really? Not even lunch? Not even being with your friends? It opens it up, and it's not so rote and threatening. So I would say, you know, did you do something interesting in history today? What are you guys studying? Nothing. What do you mean nothing? So I need to call school? Well, pretty soon you're going to get, well, we're studying U.S. history and we're at this part of the Revolutionary War. Oh, that's really interesting. What do you think about that? Pretty soon you have the biography going and you have all of this data coming up.
You eventually
It's
break them.
perfect. Yeah,
Basically, you eventually break them from the nothing
but
because you're not going away.
keep asking those questions. You know, strangely enough, ask your kids, what do you guys want to have for dinner next week? Strange. Give them a choice. What do you want? Spaghetti, pizza, Mountain Dew and Cheetos? No, real dinner, nutritious. It involves them. If you're going to the grocery store, you're going to the hardware store, the fabric store, invite them to go along. Just say, we're just going to be a few minutes. Want to come along? The message is, you're important to me and I want to spend time with you. Not, gee, do you want to go look at boring fabric or look at nuts and bolts at the hardware store or help me shop. It's really, I want to spend time with you. That's a message that can never be replaced. It's important, and sometimes, you know, that's all they need is, and it gets them out of the house. Or away from the friends that may be undesirable. It's an out. The other thing I want to say around that is, give them an out. If they really are hanging around friends that they're not comfortable with and they're bad influences on them, say, all you ever need to say to me is, hey Mom, am I still grounded? And you know what? That's your cue to say, yes you are, you need to come home. Or I'll be right there to pick you up. Give them an out. If their friends are out drinking and they got to check in and you just say, Mom, we're going out, am I still grounded? Wow, what a great save. What a great save. Set that up. Is it manipulation? Maybe. Might have saved their life. Worth it for me. Being honest, I don't think I need to say anything about that. That's having integrity and feeds all those morals and values. Sorry, I've been babbling.
He's good. He's got great ideas. Pick your battles. This is interesting. There's lots of battles. Make sure you know which ones are important. If your kid is going to dye his hair green, and you think that's where you want to take your stand, that's going to be your biggest battle, then take your stand. But make sure that you pick your battles. Sometimes, sorry about that, kids just need to show some of their independence and who they are, and your kids will be more willing to listen to you when it really does matter. So I think it's important that you always pick your battles. Teenagers who are involved, which is just what we've been talking about so much, and have good support systems, are less likely to succumb to peer pressure, and that's what this is all about. This is about building a healthy teen who actually can survive peer pressure, who can make decisions for themselves. And it's not an easy process because the peer pressure it's heavy, and kids are always trying to pull kids down. Sometimes kids that make poor choices don't want to be the ones caught, so they'll grab all their friends and bring them along because they think it'll be easier on them. So supporting your teenager, building a healthy teenager with some of our tips is the way to go. I'm going to take this off and I'm going to hand it to Mr. Stone. Here's my slide, Mr. Stone.
Wow, I'm
Step over
finally
here.
on the right slide now, I guess.
He's good at dress.
I'm sorry if I jumped ahead,
Yeah,
Mrs.
you better
Johnson.
be.
I better
Buddy.
be. Right, don't argue with law enforcement. It won't get you anywhere. Pinnacle Grade Viewer, I began speaking about. If you want to check your students' grades, the district has developed a on their website, PSD website, under one of the drop-down menus, Pinnacle Grade Viewer. And hopefully, whatever school your child attends, they sent you a letter with the student's ID number as well as their PIN number, which you'll need to get into it. And if you have questions about that, after we're done, I'll be happy to show you how to do it or connect with you at another date to do that. Within Pinnacle Grade Viewer, it's a live grade thing. It's as comprehensive as soon as the teacher enters grades. It'll show you missing assignments, attendance, assessments. It'll also allow you to sign up for an email notification should your students' grades drop to a certain level, and it'll alert you that their grades drop, which is pretty cool because then you can jump on board because they don't want you to and help them get their grades back up. It's a nice tool for kids too, that if you can agree upon it, maybe you want to print it out every Friday and then put it on the refrigerator and check grades every Friday together. You don't need to go on Pinnacle. Ask your student to go on Pinnacle and show you. Let them do the driving. Let them be in charge of that. There's no lies there. It's all data. Sometimes grades aren't entered right away because a teacher who has 180 students doesn't always get that homework assignment or that assessment into their grade book right away. It does take time. So you have to be patient and find a regular time maybe with that school or that teacher when they enter grades. But that's a great way to track your student's success. Uh-oh. We got blacked out. What was the next one?
End of slideshow. Go ahead. Why don't you just go ahead and cover the other PSD resources for us, if you don't mind.
What were the other ones?
Mental health.
Mental health. You still need this on. Mental health resources available through school district. Most schools have a school counselor. That should be a primary resource, I would imagine, for you. Also, some schools have social workers attached to them that come as mental health workers, therapists, that counselor, principal, whoever your contact person at that school can get you in touch with. Each school has a crisis team, should there be a crisis, and members of that crisis team. The district also has a district-wide crisis team and works with the local school, works with the community, great liaison. The counselor, the social worker of that school, if you're needing additional assistance, really ought to be able to hook you up with someone or a group of people in the community with names, numbers, addresses, and sometimes even personal contacts. Other resources available through Poudre School District, tutoring online school. Should you become homeless, we have the McKinney Act comes into play where if you have to move in with relatives or relatives move in with you and they have a child, school district will help with food sources if need be, with counseling, with housing. I'm not saying that they'll give you money for all those things. I'm saying they'll try to help accommodate with getting you services for those at no cost. Medical, the nurse at the local school will also help you and your family address medical issues, whether they're health issues or dental issues. There are resources around for that, but they have the knowledge and the resources for that. Again, because I'm a social worker and a counselor, I say that's the office you need to go through because they seem to know more of what's going on in the community than most. Academically, your students' teachers, counselor should be able to hook you up with academic support, whether it be a homework help after school or meeting before and after school or during lunch with their teacher. Private conferences, I would say to you, do not hesitate to call the school counselor and say, could you please set up a meeting with all of my kids' teachers so that we can talk about what needs to happen or find out what's going on or what's not going on around their academic and their achievement. That's what we're about, is students being successful in life. That should be pretty much a no-brainer for any counselor to do. It does take time. Please be lenient with that. Most teachers are teaching during the day, which leaves before and after school or during their lunchtime. Sometimes as you work in the community, times are hard to coordinate, but be patient and be persistent. Okay, your kid's important, and we are in the business of education, and we do want them to thrive. Additional resources that I might have missed. Extracurricular activities, they're all over the place. They're in our community. That can be a clearinghouse for you to gather that information, would be the school site. I also invite you into schools. You as parents, you're paying for these schools. You're entrusting your child to us 6 to 8 hours a day. Come and be a part of it, please. Please be a part of it. You're probably the most valuable resource in education. And we need to access you, but we can't unless we know you. So please come to our school, get to know, be a part of a committee. What can parents do to be a part of their school? Site improvement teams, district advisory boards. They're big names for lots of important decisions that need to be made. PTO, what a great place to be for a parent. Since I'm a representative on the PTO, I just love our PTO. They're wonderful. They help us make important decisions about students, about school culture, about school climate, about assistance for families, about materials for the school. Please join your local PTO. It's a great place to be. It's about parents. It's about their kids. If there's a family event like chili supper, community fair, dances, I encourage you, go to them, get involved in them, see if you can help. Volunteer in the classroom. I don't think it's legal to make cupcakes and be the room mom and dad anymore, but sometimes we can do store-bought. Maybe there's a student in a class near you that needs a little help with reading or math. Maybe you're just the right person for it. And then, in return, your student will see you doing that. Well, to me, that's giving back. What a great place. You're visible at your kid's school. Wow, I think things are apt to go well. I think they're going to see you invested in school. Maybe they'll invest more.